Hi, so I am giving Alyssa a lesson on parallel parking, and this is kind of an interesting lesson because I already went through a few of the original steps with my younger brother. He just got his license, and I thought it'd be fun to teach him parallel parking because it's something that not many kids his age know, and it's an important skill to have when you're older, especially just when you're starting to drive on your own and understanding where you can park and how you can get in those spots. So I thought it would be fun to finish the lesson with Alyssa because we can see the gender differences that they both have. I know with my brother already, um, he's pretty quiet in the car and he made decisions pretty quickly and knew he needed to get into a spot and didn't think through the how to get there. So I'm wondering if the girls' side will have that a little different. So I chose this lesson because I think this has a lot of higher level thinking. It's got a lot of analyzation. They have to be able to understand how to turn the wheel to make it fit into space. Um, and you can't just pull in. You have to be able to fit your car that's this size in a space this big. I think that's really important. It builds on a lot of the spatial intelligence because it's again analyzing a space and knowing how your car works with that and how the wheel gets involved and how the steering wheel moves the tires and yeah. It also uses a lot of the frontal lobe of your brain because that's where all the problem solving goes on. Hopefully by the end of the lesson it will be more instinct, but in the beginning of the lesson it's definitely going to be some problem solving and figuring out how it works. Also, for both kids, there's a lot of situational interest because they both recently got their licenses. And it's something that kids their age might be starting to know, but they don't need to know it for their license tests. And so it's a fun skill that they can show off to their friends if they know it and that they can use a lot too, especially with city driving or anywhere like that. So for my lesson, I'm going to start out by giving her an example of a parallel parking job just so she can see it and visualize it. And then I'm going to have her take the wheel. And I'm hoping to raise her self efficacy by first just starting out with the having the other person in the car, just having her start to pull into a spot, just and then building on it. So backing up in a straight line along the curb, and then trying to back into an empty space that's very large with no cars around. And then maybe one that's outlined by lines, and then slowly introducing cars as she picks it up. And I'm hoping to analyze her zone of proximal development as she starts the driving. So if she already knows how to parallel park some, like you had said, you had started to teach her some. So if it's too easy, we can give her smaller spaces to work with the cars, or we can try parallel parking along a hill. That always adds some difficulty. And let's see. Oh yeah, so we're going to test her personal theory by having her just try out after I do the initial parallel parking example, just having her try it when she's ready for it without really giving her a step-by-step yet and seeing if she has any presumptions that might make her end up at a different spot than she's supposed to be at, and figuring out from there what part of her personal theory needs correcting. This lesson, I think, has a lot of intrinsic motivation just because you don't really need any bribes to get someone to learn how to drive. It's kind of fun for a 16-year-old who just got their license. And it's a good skill to have. And I think as long as I reiterate that and that it's pretty cool to use, that she'll desire to practice on her own. I'm going to try to keep her attention by not having any music on in the car and finding an empty area where there's no people that could distract her. And if her anxiety increases before it gets into a debilitating anxiety state, I might have her switch spots with me and I can show her again the steps that are needed to parallel park just so she can see it and run through that good example again in her brain. And oh yeah, so just to close, at the end of the lesson, I am going to have her think of some questions. So I'm going to ask her questions like, when would you not want to parallel park? How would you judge a spot and the size of the spot? And maybe like, if you pull in and you don't get it right the first time, what do you do? Or if you hit another car, all these different things that can arise with parallel parking, just to kind of build her moral development. Cognitively, the whole lesson is kind of on that, like figuring out how to work the space and how to think through moving the car and the wheel. Socially, I think that having someone else in the car with her as a new driver, I know that they don't often have other kids in the car with them because of that whole rule. And so I think learning to drive while having conversations with people or talking, or having other people distracting you, is a good skill to build as she's going to start driving probably younger siblings and stuff. So yeah, that's my lesson with Alyssa. Yeah.